I'm Nick.
I'm Jean-Luc.
And we're the Wellness Warriors.
Or previously known as the WW Gays.
So today we're continuing our series of Have You Met Naomi? Hi, Naomi.
Hi.
How are you, Naomi?
I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad, actually. We're doing pretty good. Busy as always. It's funny how the virtual life has been just as busy as the non-virtual life, but it always happens in my dining room.
Because you get to fit more in a virtual life.
That's why. A lot less commute time or time wasted doing things you don't really want to do, if that makes any sense.
It totally makes sense, right?
So
I know for me, I teach virtually right now, and I'm about to go back in person. And the commute from my kitchen to my living room or my second bedroom where my office is, it's a lot shorter.
So Naomi, introduce yourself. Where are you from? And
your journey.
Yes, give us a little bit of background.
I'm Naomi. I live in Toronto. I started my WW journey in January of 2013. And I was going through a lot at that time. I had just lost 2 out of my 3 grandparents that were alive at the time, and then also my mother, like literally back to back. So it was a lot of grief going on, and I was having a very difficult time coming to terms with my mother's passing. And I was seeing a grief counselor just to help me deal with it. And a few months after she had passed away, I was walking into my grief counseling session, and I got a phone call from a friend of mine who lives in a different country to let me know that unfortunately another friend of ours who was going through a lot of physical and mental health issues at the time had gone to bed one night, and unfortunately she never woke up. And for better, I got that phone call as I was walking into my grief counseling session, and I made the friend repeat it because I couldn't believe it, and I wanted to make sure that I heard him right. And I, like many of my friends in that friend group, we had all grown up with this friend, and she was going through just a lot, and I think her heart and her body just gave out on her. And she left behind her husband and her 10-year-old at the time. And for me, it was the worst thing that could ever happen to anybody. But it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Because when
I guess we would call that like
your breaking point. That was
absolutely. It was for sure my breaking point. Or as Oprah likes to say, your aha moment, but it was for sure my breaking point, right? And I was sitting down in front of my grief counselor, who, by the way, I compare him to Albert Einstein because he has like the hair, the mustache, the bow tie, the whole thing. But he calls me out on all of my stuff. Right. Like, which is why I was sent to him, because he was so good with me. Like, he calls me out on all my stuff. He gives me the tough love I needed. And when I sat down in front of him, I was literally white as a ghost. And he looks at me, he's like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "Nothing, I'm fine." And he goes, "No, you're white as a ghost." He goes, "What's wrong? This is the worst I've seen you since I started seeing you." And I started seeing him a few weeks after my mother had passed away. And like, he pushed me on it, and I wouldn't let him push me on it. And eventually I just broke down and I started crying. And I looked at him and I said, and I explained to him what happened. And then I said, "I can't do this anymore." And he said, "Good." He goes, "Now go do something about it." And I did. And about a week or 2 later, I walked into a WW meeting.
awesome.
And it's interesting because like a few weeks before, that same grief counselor had called me out on my weight.
And I was just going to ask you, so where were you at that point in your life, like weight-wise and health-wise, and how were you feeling about yourself at that point?
So at that point, weight-wise, I was 235 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, and health-wise, aside from my weight, thank God I was actually I was pretty healthy. So I was on some medication just to help with some hormone stuff, which, by the way, as a result of my weight loss, I've been able to come off of.
Woo-woo!
Yeah. I've been able to come off of, and my body's like adjusted itself. But aside from that, that was really the only prescription meds I was really on. Other than that, I was pretty healthy. Yeah, so I was 235 and I've lost a total of 80 pounds.
That's,
Wow, that's
amazing.
Was there a reason in particular why you chose WW? Like, was there a reason behind it?
Well, when I had walked through the doors in 2013, it was actually my second time doing WW. The first time I had done it, a family member had brought home all the stuff, like all of the information, because a family member a family member had done it through work.
Isn't that how it happens to most of us? Like, honestly,
Right?
who hasn't been introduced to WW by another family member other than Nick, really? Because, well, actually, no, I introduced you to it.
I am married to you.
Yeah,
So you are.
So I am a family member, but it's so true. I think it's the program that's been along for one of the longest when you really think about it.
Word of mouth, right?
Right, and there's a reason why it works. Like, we've been in meetings together. You've heard, I've said this to you. There's a reason why it works and why it's successful. So the first time, I think it was in 2006, the first time when the family member had brought it home, and at that point, I had lost about 20 pounds, and then like we just stopped doing it, right? And that, right, which is a very familiar story.
Oh,
Right? Yeah. And so then the reason I did it again was because it worked for me the first time, right? And I had seen success on it the first time. So why not try it again? And for me, thank God I've been very lucky where for the most part I eat pretty healthy. Like, yes, I can be better on my fruits and veggies, and I've gotten better with that over the years. But for me, the big thing was my portion control. That was really what I needed the help with, and that was my big thing.
I think what I find, and I've shared this before, I call WW calories for dummies, because I'm not smart enough to go to a store and look at foods and figure out which one's better for me based on the caloric intake.
I'm the exact same way.
I put it in my app, and this one says 5 points, that one says 3. Okay, I know I can figure it out that I'll pick the 3.1 because it's a granola bar, so I'll get the same feel. And
Nick, I'm the exact same way, because I'm the same way with calories. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. I can't figure it out. But with the points, it's easy for me because I can wrap my head around it.
well, it's almost like they removed all the extra zeros, because in calories, you always counted in the thousands in this, and it's like, I'm sorry, but if it's 3 points, I know I can eat it. But when you're telling me it's 3,000 calories, it's like, is that bad? Is that
your macros and your micros?
How do I know?
I don't know.
Right, and that's the beauty of the program. It simplifies it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like, because I know how many points I'm starting with, right? I know how many points like I have throughout my day depending on what I'm eating, right?
Yeah, definitely. So it's so funny. We talked about it a little bit, and I maybe you want to reiterate it again, but we know about our whys. Our whys are huge for every single WW member. Why is so big, and I'm sure if you talk about your why today from back then, is it still the same? And how does it help you today?
It is still the same. The only sort of, I guess, add-on or little difference is I know I don't want to go back to the way I was, right? And I know that I don't want to end up the way my friend ended up, right? So for me, I always remember my why, right? And why I walked through the door, and it really pushes me to keep going, because I got, after 2.5 years on being on WW, this time when I started in 2013, I got to Lifetime and I lost that 80 pounds. And then I was like, I can do this by myself. And you've heard me say this before, because we've been in meetings together where I've said, I can do this by myself. I kept everything up except I stopped going to the meetings, which was a really big mistake, because I had gained 20 pounds back. And thank God I caught it at the 20 pounds, because I was like, what am I doing? I worked so hard to lose that weight. I paid all this money, and that's not the most important thing, obviously, but like I worked so hard to lose all this weight. I can't go back to the way it was. And thank God I caught it then instead of gaining all the weight back. Right.
I think one of the lessons that we all learn, I think that's one of the lessons we've learned this time, because we were very much on the diet mentality where we would join, lose 30 and gain it all back. Whereas this time now, we do sometimes start gaining again, but we catch ourselves a lot quicker than we used to. And I think that's the difference in one of the mindset shifts that we had as well.
But I also think it's because we've allowed ourselves to realize that we need to be human through this journey.
You can't expect it on all the time.
Like, there's no such thing as robotic mode. You don't have a button that you can just press inside you and say, I'm gonna be so rigid and never go above my points on every single day of the month in any moment.
Yeah.
And I think that's when you finally realize, at least we realize, that the flexibility in this program really adds to the benefits of learning the program and using the program to your advantage.
For sure. And that is the beauty of the flexibility of the program, right? Like, I know for me, I didn't want to go back to that. I know for me, I'm glad that I caught it, and this is why the meetings are so important. And I know we're in the middle of like a crazy world right now, but the virtual meetings have been so amazing, and the beauty of the program in general and the flexibility it has is really wonderful, and the virtual meetings has really made that even more so. Like, I log on to a meeting pretty much almost every single day.
Wow.
Except for Fridays and Saturdays, because it's my Sabbath, right? I pretty much log on to a meeting almost every single day. Right? Whether it's a peer group meeting or a regular meeting, sometimes it's 2 meetings a day, right? Like, so those meetings are crucial, because even though there are slight differences in everybody's journey and our whys are different, right? Like, we all go through like similar things. Like, I know this week I had a really rough week weight wise. Like, I finally got to Lifetime the second time, and it's been about a month since I got to Lifetime the second time. Thank you. And this week I had a really rough week, because I know I had a 5-pound cushion once I got to Lifetime this time, but then my body, hormones, nibbling, and it happens. Like, we're all normal, right? Like, I've gained a little bit back, but I'm still within my Lifetime range. Knock on wood, thank God, I'm still within my Lifetime range. And I was just like, I was letting it gets to me psychologically, right? And we talk a lot about the importance of the mindset and how crucial that is. And I was starting to let it get to me, and I could feel that. And sometimes I let it get to me more than other times. So, and it happened to me my weigh-in day. I had missed my regular meeting on Thursday because I had parent-teacher interviews. I'm a teacher. So, but I logged on to a peer group meeting. Thank God I logged on to that peer group meeting. It was the Lifetime meeting. The leader said something to me that made me feel so much better. She said, do you remember how you felt when you logged on to the Lifetime meeting, when you got to Lifetime, which was about a month ago? She goes, can you bottle that feeling and carry it with you? And instantly, I remember what that feeling was like, and it made me feel better. And I needed that spark of inspiration to be like, okay, my mind switch, I can do this. I've done it before.
It's so funny how the feelings of happiness and joy we can forget so easily, but yet the feelings of angst and anxiousness and despair come to us in full fold, and sometimes in like tidal waves.
For sure.
I love what you shared there about being inspired at your workshop, because that's actually our next question. Who or what inspires you? And you could be at the beginning of your journey, now, or any time throughout, but who inspires you? Who or what inspires you?
I think it's the people that are in the meetings. It's people like the two of you, right? It's people like that are in the meetings. It could be something as simple, something very simple that they say, and that support is everything, right? Because everybody is like, yes, again, our whys are very different, but like, we're all on this journey together, and we all experience similar things. Because there's meetings that I've been on where someone's having a really hard week at the same time I am, or someone's been through like something similar that I have, and to be able to get the support from them or to get suggestions from them is really helpful, and I'm able to give it back to them. When you open up the app, a lot of the time they have this little quote as the app opens, and one of the quotes that always sticks with me is, it's about progress, it's not about perfection. Right. Yep. And I use that a lot in my teaching, because I tell my students all the time, It's not about always getting the right answer. Yes, the right answer is important at times, but it's about explaining your thinking. It's about the process. It's about showing that you can explain what you're doing, and you can understand what you're doing, so you can explain that.
I love one thing you said there, because you said, when I go to meetings and I'm struggling, somebody else is, and then they talk about it, it helps me. But what's funny is that we were at a meeting once where someone says, I didn't want to share because I'm struggling this week. And I'm usually a ball of energy, and I'm always the one that cheers people on, but I didn't want to share it because I want to bring people down. And we're like, no, this is your opportunity to be the person. You help others every other week. This was your week. You needed help. You have to speak up and tell people, I need help. This is what WW is about. The community is about reaching out and getting the help you need when you need it.
Absolutely.
And want to get rid of that whole stigma that people that are at goal are just perfect, and they know exactly what they're doing, and nothing goes wrong for them, and they don't order Thai food on a Saturday night,
right?
Like we did not just do tonight. You know what I mean? But and you did say something just a few minutes ago, and I loved your explanation about getting to the answer of a question sometimes. And I thought of it as a mathematical equation, and I remember, getting the whole, especially those complex mathematical equations, right? A lot of times your teacher doesn't look at the answer. They want to see how you got to that answer. And they want to see the process. If the answer is wrong, you'll still get points for the process if you did the right process.
And the thing is too, doing the process once and learning from your mistake means next time you might do the same process again and get it right.
And get the right answer.
Right? Because that's how we learn. It's so interesting. I recently had parent-teacher interviews, and I was talking with a parent who grew up in a very similar way that I did in terms of being taught things by rote, and how that was like drilled into us. And today that's very different. And I recently took a math webinar, and the facilitators were saying how it's really about the process, right? And it's about explaining your thinking and comparing each other's thoughts. And like when I teach with my students, they show me different ways of how they got to the answer, right? They also got the right answer, but like they're able to walk me through their process. And even if they make a mistake, they're like, they even pick up on it when I say to them, okay, walk me through your process. And I've had students be like, hold on, wait a minute. And then they're able to correct themselves, right? So it's very interesting, because I grew up the same way with doing things by rote.
And it's funny though, when we look at it as a mathematical equation and we put it on paper, it's easy to figure out. But when it's out there in the air that you physically have to do something or physically have to change something, you think you still have to get it right all the time. And even though you don't, you have to I honestly now think the more struggle you have on a journey sometimes, the more you learn and the longer it sticks with you.
For sure. And it's so interesting, because when I got to Lifetime the first time, everyone said to me, they're like, being at Lifetime, being on maintenance is so much harder than actually losing the weight. And I was like, I didn't believe them. And then I got to Lifetime, and then I was like,
no.
Exactly. And it is so much harder, but you have to, I think for me, the best advice I can give is to tell people, you got to, even though you're at Lifetime, you can't stop what you're doing that got you to Lifetime, right? You still need to stick with your strategies that work for you. Still go to meetings, still do your tracking. For me, it's drinking a lot of water. For me, it's getting to my 10,000 steps every day, right? And it's making sure I do that and making sure I stay within my points as best as possible. Doesn't always happen, and that's okay. And that's why we have that leeway, right? But it's making sure that even though you're at Lifetime, to stick with the strategies that still work for you as you are losing the weight. There's a reason why it works.
I love that you said is stick to the strategies that work for you. That is such a good takeaway there. So we have another question for you, and we want you to talk about, why can't I read them? So what do you do when you feel like you can't do it anymore? Like you're just like, I'm done with this. Like how do you get out of that mindset?
For me, it's hopping onto a meeting. It's going to a meeting or journaling, right? Mm-hmm. I've never been a big journaler my whole life. I don't know if I said that properly, but right. I've always wanted to be, but I find that when I have journals of different points in my life, And it's not necessarily consistent. It's just at different points in my life. Whether I was like, I lived abroad for a year, I had a journal from that year. I've had journals of times in my life where I've been struggling. And it's so interesting looking back at those journals to see where I was then and where I am now. Totally different person, right? Because
And who's to say the way you're journaling isn't the right way to journal?
exactly, because it's what works for me, right? Exactly, as we said before.
There's no journal police.
Right, exactly. So it's funny because the things that I was journaling about back then, and to look at that, I was like, I'm a completely different person because sometimes it surprises me that those things bother me, but at that time in my life, they were big deals for me, right? And like for me, I've never been a big journal throughout my WW journey. I just recently started journaling in terms of my WW journey. And some people do it consistently through the whole time, and that works for them. And I just recently started doing it. But that really helps. Also, hopping onto a meeting really, really helps. I have a family member who's also on WW. I will sometimes text that family member for questions or for support. And other members, other leaders, I will text them for support also. So that's really, really, really huge for me.
So it seems to you like one of the major the things that helps you when you're struggling the most is the community aspect of the program. Like reaching out, getting the help from others is like the biggest. And I think that's even ours as well a little bit. Like we won't lie, like we use all of you as our cheerleaders when we're having a bad moment or a bad day. So
and we actually look up to every single one of you as our inspiration to get us
motivated
to the next to that next level of saying, guess what? We're all human. We all make choices, and I'm not even going to say bad choices because again, it's a choice. Right. You're the one that adds the goodness or badness to it sometimes. We sometimes put that word in front of it when really it wasn't that bad of a choice, but we just have to accept it.
So I do have a question.
And we say this all the time, like whatever choice you make, accept it. Like make the choice exactly. Accept it, move on. And like the big thing for me is as someone has said to me within the WW world is tomorrow is always a reset day.
Yes.
Right? And it's interesting throughout my journey, a lot of members and a lot of leaders and a lot of guys have always said, your journey's gonna be up and down. Your journey's gonna be like this. You're gonna see that track of your weight be like this. And that never, like, I got it and I understood it, but it never really stuck with me until I heard the two of you say it in one of the first times I heard the two of you speak. You guys said it, and for whatever reason, that time, it stuck with me. And I heard you speak for the very first time when we went virtual, right?
Wow.
When you came into one of the meetings, I think back in the spring. And I've heard that up and down line so many times throughout my journey, but for whatever reason, when you guys said it for me, the light bulb finally went off.
It's funny that you say that because a lot of light bulbs went off when other people said it to us as well. And it's just how it's presented sometimes. And I think a lot of times it's where you are at that moment. On your journey.
I do have impromptu questions. I just thought of something right now. Is there something that you've done on your journey that surprises you? That's something that you never thought you could have done or achieved? Is there anything?
I think fitting into smaller sizes.
Oh,
that's amazing.
And I think you've heard me tell this story before. I remember when I lost, when I got to Lifetime the first time after 2.5 years, I went on a shopping spree with a friend of mine, and we started and we literally went the whole day, didn't go to the bathroom, didn't have lunch, right? And it was like, we went from like, I think 9 or 10 in the morning to like 4 o'clock. And at 4 o'clock, we're like, we didn't have lunch. We didn't go to the bathroom. No wonder we have to go, like, right? And I remember we walked into a store and I found this beautiful dress I really loved, and it zipped up. And I just looked at them in the mirror and I started crying because it was a single digit size. I don't remember the last time I fit into a single digit size. Like and even now some sizes, some clothes that I wear are lower double digits, and that's fine. But even to fit into that has been huge for me because I never walked in, like I would always walk into plus size stores, right? And like now I don't necessarily have to do that. Right. And I remember when I zipped up that dress, and that dress I actually still have, and I still wear. I actually wore it for a family, like a family celebration we were having recently. And I wore it because it was a purple dress. That was the color scheme. And when I tried that dress on in the store, my friend who was with me looked at me, she goes, "What's wrong with you?" And I said to her, I'm like, "You don't understand." I'm like, "It's a size 4. I've never fit into size 4 ever." And the salesperson looked at me and said, "Are you okay? What's wrong?" And when I explained it to her, she even got emotional in a good way. So for me, that was one thing. The other thing is, there's a lot of things I can do a lot easier. Like I can walk to places a lot faster, right? Because I'm not carrying that extra weight. I can do stairs a lot easier. Like that's also the other thing. But the big thing for me is the clothes.
Oh,
Thank you so much. I just thought of that question because it kind of hit me and I wanted to hear. And that story about clothing is very relatable to us. So it's I think it'll relate to a lot of people. A lot of us have probably never gone to a regular clothes store and be like, "I fit here." So it's just such a good, powerful story to share. So thank you for sharing that.
definitely. Naomi, it's been amazing chatting with you tonight. It's been amazing getting to know you. We can't wait to get to know you even more.
Tomorrow night.
Hosting with us tomorrow evening
On the fireside chat.
Thank you. I'm very excited. Thank you so much for this. The other thing I wanted to add, and I wanted to say, and I have said this before because I've written abridged versions of my journey on Connect, and something I had forgotten to add that I just wanted to add. Like my why is what happened to my friends, right? And a lot of her extended family, I know and I grew up with, and they don't really know that like she's their family members, the reason why, right? And I remember I had bumped into one of this friend, I think it was her aunt, and she very clearly had noticed the weight loss, and we had a conversation, and she said, "Well, why did you start it?" And I was very hesitant to tell her why, because I didn't want her to get upset. I didn't want her to get offended. And I was very hesitant, and she could see that. And she's like, "Why are you hesitant?" So I said, "Look," I said, the reason why is what happened to your niece." And she just looked at me and she smiled and she goes, "What a beautiful tribute to her. That her passing had a beautiful purpose."
Right? Love that.
That's amazing.
Right?
That gave me goosebumps actually, and it's so true.
So
and
true.
It's
so true.
From sadness
Became a butterfly.
Yeah,
right?
from
Right. And it's really important to know that like you have to do this for you. No matter how many other people tell you you need to lose the weight, you need to lose weight. And I've had people tell me that, and they have the best of intentions and they mean well, and that constructive criticism is from a really good place. But like I never took it that way when they would tell me that. And
well, we're prime examples to that for years and years and years, even ourselves saying we have to lose weight, we have to lose weight. But until we were actually willing to listen to what we were saying to ourselves and put the work into it. Because as much as people don't want to admit to it, it does take work and it takes time.
Right. And you have to do it for you. It doesn't happen overnight, and you have to do it for you. Because I've had friends say to me, "Okay, how do we get other people like that they're concerned about to like lose weight?" Because I've had people ask me, right? Like I had another friend who knows this friend who passed away and said, "Okay, how do we get other people or other family members of this person who passed away to lose the weight like you did and have that aha moment?" I'm like, no matter what you say or what you do, you're not, no matter how well you mean, or no matter like you mean well, you're not going to get them to do it, because they have to do it for them.
You said it right there. They have to make their own aha moment before they can do anything.
Right. And for me, it was my extreme, and for everyone, their why is different. For me, it was the extreme. I don't know, and I had this realization recently. I don't know if my friend's passing necessarily would have had the same effect on me if I wasn't going through my own grief with my grandparents and my mother passing so close together, because they were literally one after the other. I don't know if it would have had the same effect on me if it happened at a different time in my life.
And everything happens for a reason.
And it's something you'll never know, but guess what? What needed to happen for you happened, and that's what you need to think
Right,
about.
and it happened at the right time for me, and we'll never, you know.
Thank you so much, Naomi, for sharing everything.
So thank you everyone for joining us for this latest episode of Have You Met? So if you want to follow us, please subscribe us on all social media using the hashtag WWGays or the handle at the WWGays.
Yes, and then you can follow, like you said, you can check out our website, www.gays.com.
And if you want, you can subscribe to our channel, hit the subscribe button, and then hit the little bell to be notified when you have new videos. And have a great night.
Bye, everybody.
See you tomorrow.
Thank you for all the two of you do, because you are such inspiration to everybody. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to do this. So you guys are phenomenal. Thank you.
I love you, Naomi. Mwah.
Thank you.